Hello everybody and welcome back to The Lost Planeswalker. You're here with me, Jesse, The Lost Planeswalker, and today I'm doing a first look at Modern Horizons 3. This video is going to focus around all the cards that we have already had come out. I did talk about a few of these several months ago when they were first released, and I'll just skim over those. I want to go into depth with some of these new cards and kind of take a look at what this set is going to be and what we can expect to see from it. We do have, I believe, 4 commander cards and a total of 36 Modern Horizons cards, with 18 brand new cards I'm going to talk about on my channel, and the rest are all from before. But let's dive right in. Let's start out with those commander cards, and notably, we only got cards from 2 of the decks, and I think they're okay. I think there's some cool stuff you can do with them, but some of the other unofficial stuff I've seen definitely is a lot cooler. But starting out, we have Planar Nexus and March from the Veil, and these two are from the Tricky Terrain deck. The basic idea of this deck is land ramp and grow value, which is what Simic already does, so that's not really much of a deck strategy, in my opinion. But Planar Nexus is a land that is every non-basic land type. That is caves, deserts, gates, lairs, locusts, mine, power plant, sphere, tower, and Urzas. So this does cover all those bases. I think that this is pretty interesting. I can see this being kind of an important piece in any deck that cares about those different land types. It's going for a lot right now, but I don't really expect it to stay up that much once we get copies of this out there. And then March from the Velis Veil. Sorcery, choose a non-basic land type. Each land you control of that type becomes a copy of target creature you control until end of turn, and it gains haste until end of turn. Now this is a much better card. I'm sure there's going to be some really good hits, and you can turn all of your lands into some really cool creatures. We'll have to see more cards from this deck when they come out. But next up, from the Graveyard Overdrive deck, we have Final Act and Siege Gang Lieutenant. Notably here, this deck is about filling up your graveyard and avenging the dead. Maybe Golgari is better known for this, but I don't know, that also seems pretty nondescript. But Final Act here is 4 black sorcery, choose 1 or more. Destroy all creatures, destroy all planeswalkers, destroy all battles, exile all graveyards, each opponent loses all counters. Yeah, I mean, this is just a better version of a bunch of other cards we have, kinda. It does destroy, not exile, so a lot of people are going to compare this to Farewell, because of course Farewell is the same mana cost, just in white. But this does also make it so each opponent loses all counters. I just don't know how important that's going to be. I don't know, maybe there's something in this deck where that is important. Who knows? But Siege Gang Lieutenant, 3 in a red creature goblin with Lieutenant. At the beginning of combat on your turn, if you control your commander, create 2 1/1 red goblin creature tokens. Those tokens gain haste until end of turn. 2, sack a goblin. Siege Gang Lieutenant deals 1 damage to any target. It's okay. 2 mana, sack goblin, deal 1 damage. Not a great rate. There's a lot of other better rates. Free and deal a damage to any target, notably. But just making 2 goblins every combat is pretty good. I would include this in my goblin deck for sure. But with that out of the way, let's start looking at these main set cards. And I'm just running down the order that they were spoiled in, I guess, officially. So we have Null Elemental Blast, Spawn Gang Commander, and Meltdown. I did think it was quite funny that Siege Gang Lieutenant and Spawn Gang Commander are both new cards. But Null Elemental Blast is a single colorless mana from a waste, and I want to make that clear because I think a lot of people are going to see this and say, oh, that's just a colorless mana. Surely I can just cast that and put it in any deck. No, you have to tap either an artifact like Sol Ring that makes specifically a colorless mana, or a waste that makes a colorless mana. It's not just generic mana, it is a colorless specifically, and that's really important here because it's an instant that says choose 1, counter target multicolored spell, or destroy target multicolored permanent. This would be insanely broken if you could just counter any multicolored permanent or destroy target multicolored permanent for a generic mana. That would be insane. But that's not the case. It is a specifically colorless mana, so keep that in mind. You know, this is probably only going to show up in decks that are playing all colorless, like Eldrazi decks or whatever. So it's a cool card. It's limiting. You know, I don't know. Maybe there is a format in Modern where this is really going to pop off. I'm not aware of it, but it's pretty cool. Spawn Gang Commander, 3 red creature, Eldrazi Goblin with Devoid, so it has no color technically, even though it costs red to cast. And whenever you cast a spell, create 3 0/1 colorless Eldrazi spawn creature tokens with sacrifice this and add a colorless, and 1 and a colorless, sack an Eldrazi. Spawn Gang Commander deals 2 damage to any target. Again, yeah, I mean, this is cool. I think that, you know, they're just having some fun here, and it's not really the best. I mean, maybe 5 mana, putting 3 bodies on the board is pretty good. I especially like that they sack for mana. That's one of my favorite things about the spawn tokens, so pretty cool. And then Meltdown. X and a red, sorcery, destroy each artifact with mana value X or less. Now this is fun. From the card art there you see in the bottom, this is originally from the Urza Saga block, which was way before Modern's legal card limit. But this has some really big implications, you know. I think there's some decks that really do care about if you can destroy, you know, all those artifacts, because there's a lot of artifact synergies. You know, notably one of them I've played against, Hammer Time, is really vulnerable to this card unless, you know, they're playing counter spells, which they probably are. But if you can, you know, wipe out an entire board, I mean, this might set somebody back. I mean, you only have to pump a little bit of mana into this to get rid of a lot of Modern's best artifacts. So very cool. Next up, we have Kudo, King Among Bears, Rite of the Reliquary, and Winter Moon. Kudo, King Among Bears, is a green and a white legendary creature bear. Other creatures have base power and toughness 2/2 and are bears in addition to their other types. This is perfect. I don't think that this is a Modern card. I think that this is a Commander card that they're just printing in Modern. I see no reason or deck idea where this would be good in Modern. So I think this is just fun. If you want to build a Commander with it, which I actually plan to, this just seems like fun nonsense. It's not gonna win you the game, but you're just turn everything into bears, and what's more fun than that? Rite of the Reliquary, a black and a green creature zombie knight with vigilance. It gets +1/+1 for each creature card in your graveyard, and you can tap it to sack another creature, search your library for a land, put it on the battlefield tapped, then shuffle. Yeah, this is really cool. Obviously, if you know, this used to be Knight of the Reliquary and had a very similar ability, but it's a zombie now, so it's a Rite. But I think this is a fun card. I think this probably could be pretty cool in Modern. I think this is really fun in Commander. It still has that able to search for a land, which is very, very powerful. And what's going to put this in a lot of decks is being able to search for any land you want just for sacking a creature, which in Golgari is probably going to be a combo piece anyways. So that's awesome. In Winter Moon, 2 generic artifact. Players can't tap more than 1 non-basic land during their untapped step. This is fantastic. I mean, one of the things I immediately saw when I saw Winter Moon was people trying to get into Modern could build a deck around Winter Moon with just a basic land base, and it would shut down a ton of Modern decks. Now, notably, Modern is a pretty quick format. You can win very quickly, so maybe this card isn't going to matter and I'm wrong, but some tempo decks, you know, that really want to pace it out, or maybe you can't win until turn 5 or 6, you know, hey, this is gonna stop a lot of those decks that have those giant expensive land bases that kind of keep people out of Modern and be able to, you know, play and have fun. So I think that this is definitely a sick card. Commander wise, this is a stacks effect. You're probably going to have some issues based on the power level of your play group, you know. I personally wouldn't play this in a deck. I think that this could be fun, but I think, you know, if you have a player who's playing just a precon, this kind of dunks on precons, because those precons have a lot of non-basic lands in them, especially if they're 3 or more colors. So yeah, I mean, this is a cool card. If you're playing a stacks deck, obviously include this. You know, this is a very, very cool one. But it's not as powerful, obviously, as Winter Orb, which is, you know, kind of what this effect is. So, next up after that, we have Null Drifter, Sylvan Safekeeper, and Chithranian Nightmare, which I don't know if I said that right, but I hope so. So, we have Null Drifter here, 7 generic mana, creature Eldrazi Elemental, with when you cast a spell, draw 2 cards. It is flying an Annihilator 1, and evoke for 2 and a blue, and it's a 4/4. So, obviously here, this is a pun kind of on Muldrifter, and you know, it's an Eldrazi form of it. And this is the second Eldrazi form of a card we've seen, and that is probably going to be a theme here. You know, this set is going to be based around the Eldrazi, where we have a couple more cards that are Eldrazi themed, and obviously Emrakul here is, you know, kind of one of the main cards that was already shown off, but this is fun. I mean, I think pretty much people are going to evoke this. If you're playing a colorless deck, maybe you can get this out way cheaper and draw some cards and have a creature with Annihilator 1. But 7 mana for a 4/4 and draw 2 cards, not that great. Like I said, if you can discount this, it'd be pretty cool. So next up here, we have another card that's coming from an older set that is now being put into Modern, which is Sylvan Safekeeper, single green creature human wizard with sack a land. Target creature you control gains Shroud until end of turn. I didn't really know this was a card until, you know, it got reprinted and put into Modern here, and I think this is an excellent card. I think there's a lot of decks I've built that I could have used a card like this. Green is really good at ramping really quickly. Obviously, sacking a land isn't too much of a cost. You know, maybe on an earlier turn, that might be kind of harder to deal with. I'm not sure, you know, why they decided to put this one into Modern. but I think it's quite cool, and I think it's going to be fun. Some people find some inspiration in there. And then Chithawanian Nightmare is a generic in black enchantment. When Chithawanian Nightmare enters battlefield, you get 3 energy. You may pay X in an energy, sack a creature, return Chithawanian Nightmare to its owner's hand. Return target creature card with mana value X or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. Activate only as a sorcery. So Chithawanian Nightmare here definitely is going to have a place somewhere. I'm not quite certain where. I mean, maybe in an energy deck per se, because it only costs X and 1 energy, so you're still going to have 2 energy. I'm not quite sure how this card should play out, but obviously getting stuff back from your graveyard to the battlefield, I don't know. This is weird. If you guys know how this card is going to be impactful, just let me know. But this just seems like a general, get something back from your graveyard, except you got to pay X mana and energy and sack a creature and return this to your hand. And maybe the benefit is you can do this the turn it comes down if you have a creature on the board, I guess. So, I don't know. This is interesting. But let's move on to those next 3 cards with Kappa Cannoneer, Flare of Denial, and Ormond's Chant. Kappa Cannoneer is a awesome card from Kamigawa Neon Dynasty Commander decks. It is 5 and a blue artifact creature turtle warrior with improvise, so your artifacts can help cast by tapping them for each generic you want to pay with them. It has ward 4, and whenever it or another artifact enters the battlefield under your control, put a +1/+1 counter on it, and it can't be blocked this turn. Kappa Cannoneer is an awesome card. If you've ever watched Loading Ready Run do their North 100 Showdown, Wheeler has played this several times, and in a 20 life format, this card is insane. Notably, you can potentially cast it for a single blue mana. It'll come down as a 5/5, and it can't be blocked the turn it comes down. So if you have any haste effects, boom, 5 damage right away. Next turn, play another artifact. Obviously, this is an artifact deck. You can do it again. Notably here, it says another artifact, not non-token artifact. So if you're making a bunch of treasures or clues or food, this just adds on, and you just keep adding those +1/+1s. I mean, this card can easily knock out a player in a couple of turns as soon as it comes down. So very cool. Maybe a tempo card, for those blue-white decks, a way for them to just get through every turn. I don't know, but it's one of my favorite cards from the Kamigawa Neon Dynasty Commander decks, so very cool to see here. Flare of Denial, 1 blue instant. You may sack a non-token blue creature rather than paying this spell's mana cost. Counter target spell. This is another free counter spell, essentially. I don't know. I don't think we need more of these. I don't know if Modern needs more of these. I'm not quite sure actually if there are any free counterspells in Modern per se, but yeah, I don't think we needed this one. I'm not looking forward to this. We already have enough counterspells, honestly. But if you're into this and you play counterspells on all your decks, hey, this is a new piece. This is gonna be expensive. I can see here they're charging $25 to $35, so maybe it'll stay cheap, maybe not. I hope it doesn't get too expensive, especially if you want to pick it up, but yeah. And then Ormond's Chant, single white instant with Kicker, another single white. Target player can't cast spells this turn. If it was kicked, creatures can't attack this turn. This is awesome. This is another cool old card from Planeshift, and this is a card I'm actually going to pick up just to play in Commander, because I think this is a cool spell. Notably, this is another hit for Isochron Scepter, which is insane. You can't do that second generic, unfortunately, on the Kicker, so you can't prevent somebody from attacking every turn, but just preventing them from casting spells with, Isochron Scepter is devastating. So let's look at a couple other cards here with Philia, Exuberant Shepherd, Ugin's Labyrinth, and Hergast, Erupting Nullkite. So Philia here, 1 and a white legendary creature dog with flash. Whenever Philia, Exuberant Shepherd, attacks, exile up to 1 other target non-land permanent. At the beginning of the next end step, return that card to the battlefield under its owner's control. If it entered under your control, put a +1/+1 counter on Philia. Yeah, I mean, this is cool. I think Philia is going to grow. She's going to get a little bigger. You get to exile some stuff, get it back, maybe get some good ETBs to draw cards, exile stuff, gain some life. Other than that, I don't really know where this falls into a certain meta or whatever, but I think it's cool. It definitely will find some commander play, so that's neat. Ugin's Labyrinth is a land with imprint. When Ugin's Labyrinth enters the battlefield, you may exile a colorless card with mana value 7 or greater from your hand. Interesting. Tap it to add a colorless mana. If this card was exiled with Ugin's Labyrinth, add 2 colorless instead, and tap, return the exiled card to its owner's hand. This kind of turns into a Temple of the False God land, basically, with the no mana restriction, other than you have to have a spell, mana value 7 or greater, exiled underneath it. I mean, that's kind of cool. It is also nice that you can return it back to your hand afterwards. So maybe you have something in your hand early game, you can just put this underneath it, generate additional mana, and then later game get it back to cast it. Definitely definitely see why this is mythic as far as lands go. But yeah, I'm interested to see, what other cards there are. You could definitely build a deck just based around big creatures to get this out and definitely generate those 2 colorless. And then Heragast, Erupting Nailkite. 9 generic legendary artifact Eldrazi Dragon with Emerge for 6 red. Emerge is not a common keyword, but you may cast a spell by sacking a creature and paying the emerge cost reduced by that creature's mana value. So, for example, this would normally cost 8 mana to cast, 6 in the 2 red, but if let's say you had a 5 mana creature on the board, this would only actually cost 1 in a red by sacking that creature. So it's a cool way to, kind of recycle some of your cards and get other things out. But when you cast a spell, you may exile your hand. If you do, draw 3 cards. It has flying, and each creature spell you cast has Emerge. The Emerge cost is equal to its mana cost. So notably, you can just continue to do this with the rest of your creatures. Again, I'm not quite sure that this is a modern card. This feels more like a commander card to me. I can definitely see, there's some ways you can get big stuff out of your graveyard in modern, but typically you want that stuff to stick around and you don't want to have to cast another dragon, and then this exiles your hand and gives you some cards. So I don't know where this kind of lies. This is supposed to be Modern Horizons, but I feel like it's a lot of commander cards, in my opinion, right now. So hopefully the more cards we see, the more modern focused it'll become. But then lastly here, we have Nethergoyf, Urza's Cave, and a snow-covered waste. So Nethergoyf is a single black creature with Nethergoyf's powers equal to the number of card types among cards in your graveyard, and its toughness is equal to that number plus 1. And you can escape it for 2 and a black. So we got another Goyf here. This works very similarly to Tarmogoyf, except notably here, it only counts your graveyard, not all graveyards. So that's kind of a disappointment. Now, of course, there's a lot of ways you can dump a lot of stuff into your bin in black, so that's not really an issue. But it is nice that it has escape, so you're able to kind of get it back with the downside of you having to exile cards from your graveyard to bring it back, maybe reducing its power and toughness. It also just allows you to dump a bunch of stuff in the bin, and this will sit in the bin, and maybe you can just cast it when you need it. Otherwise, I think it's okay. It's definitely great for a 1-drop, and it is cheaper by 1 than Tarmogoyf is, so I can definitely see, maybe this is an upgraded version, but it's limited to your graveyard. I don't know. I don't think I would play it in a deck per se. You'd have to really build around it, but it's very cool. So maybe if you are interested in it, and maybe I'm completely wrong and this will build a whole new, meta around this card, but not for me. Urza's Cave is here. It's a land, Urza's Cave. It's a cave card, which is cool. It taps to add a colorless mana. 3 in tap, sack Urza's Cave, search your library for a land, put on the battlefield tapped, then shuffle. Yeah, this is very cool. Another land search spell. It does cost 3 in tap. So this isn't something you're going to be playing super early, but searching for any land is pretty great. So I love that. And then lastly, we have Snow-Covered Wastes. We haven't had, I guess, a basic snow land that is also a waste before, so I think this is really neat. I'm sure a ton of people are going to be very excited to add these to their deck. I don't know if there is actually any snow interaction with Eldrazi or whatnot, but maybe there will be one day. Maybe there will be in this set, so I can see why they decided to print them here. But that is all the new cards, so very quickly, I'm going to run through those old cards and kind of do a wrap up. But I just want to say, if you enjoyed this video, if you enjoyed, my commentary about these new cards, I would please ask you to consider subscribing to my channel, leaving a like and commenting down below. Maybe there's a card here that you thought I was spot on with or way off, or maybe there's just a card you're excited about. Please leave that in the comments down below. I'd love to see that and kind of talk to you about these new cards. But kind of just running through these very quickly. We have Emrakul, A World Anew, It That Heralds the End, Ajani, Nacatl Pariah, and then Ajani, Nacatl Avenger, Flare of Cultivation, Scurry of Gremlins, Psychic Frog, Bloodstained Mire, Polluted Delta, Windswept Heath, Wooded Foothills, Flooded Strand, all the basic land types with the islands, mountains, plains, swamp, forest, and then Lelia the Blade Reforged and Priest of Titania. I'm very excited to see what we've gotten so far. It looks like there's going to be a lot of really cool cards. I'm just not sure how powerful these are going to be in Modern. A lot of these seem like Commander-focused cards, and I'm just worried because they didn't release Modern decks with this set. They're all Commander decks that they're really going to be focused on Commander players, and that's not where I want to be. I want to focus around Modern because that's what this is for. It was a huge format in Magic, and it's kind of still there, but Commander's kind of taken off, and I think if you just print this full of Commander cards and make this Commander focused, you're really just going to kill off a lot of people who are playing Modern or who want to get into Modern by, doing so. Modern is a really cool format. You know, I love brewing decks in Modern just for fun. I love, you know, playing when I can, but, you know, if it's just going to become Commander focused, what's the point? I get it. I love Commander, but I mean, I want modern Horizons and I want modern cards. And, you know, definitely some of the non-official spoilers that I didn't want to talk about yet look very, very cool. But until they become official, I really don't like to show them off in case, you know, there was something that was wrong and then I'm giving you all misinformation. May that be the detriment of the views. I could get off of it, but that's just the way I'm doing things right now. But with that, I just want to say thank you so much for watching. You know, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you found some cool cards, maybe some new ones for your modern decks, maybe some new ones for your commander decks. You know, tell me how you're feeling down below. Is there cards you've seen from my video or spoiled elsewhere that you're super excited about? But in addition, if you could leave a like, share this video with a friend, and subscribe, that would be amazing. And yeah, so let's see today's Scryfall card of the day, which is Rakdos Locket. This trinket will gain you some admittance to some painfully exclusive gathering, Xayva Blood Witch. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, I'll see you later, Planeswalkers.